People on Flight 782 thought it would be an ordinary trip, until a single act of racism froze the entire cabin. A black passenger, Jordan, politely asked for water, but the flight attendant looked him up and down, curled her lips, and said loudly, "People like you can wait." Passengers went silent. Jordan lowered his eyes, embarrassed. No one knew that within minutes, the pilot would step out of the cockpit, and the truth would change everything. Jordan Walker, a calm, soft-spoken 32-year-old software engineer, had boarded the plane early, hoping to sleep through most of the 4-hour flight. He wore a simple gray hoodie, noise-canceling headphones around his neck, and carried only a laptop bag. He never expected attention, good or bad. But the moment flight attendant Cynthia Marsh saw him, she shot him a full look of judgment. Her voice was clipped, her tone sharp. When Jordan pressed the call button to politely request water, she didn't even hide her irritation. She leaned toward him and said loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear, "I'm not your servant. Maybe ask someone in your section?" But Jordan was in the same section as everyone else. A couple in the row ahead turned to look at him with pity. A kid across the aisle stared in confusion. Jordan tried to swallow the humiliation, keeping his voice steady. "Ma'am, I was just asking for a cup of water." Cynthia smirked, "And I said you can wait." Then she walked away. But what she didn't know, Jordan wasn't just any passenger. He had a connection on this plane that was about to flip the entire situation upside down. The cabin stayed painfully quiet after Cynthia stormed off. Jordan slowly put his headphones back on, trying to hide the sting behind a calm expression. He had faced prejudice before, in college, at his first job, even in public spaces. But something about being humiliated in front of a plane full of strangers felt different. It felt shameful, undeserved, heavy. A woman across the aisle gently tapped his arm. "Are you okay?" she whispered. Jordan forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm used to it." The woman frowned. "You shouldn't have to be." Meanwhile, in the galley, Cynthia complained loudly to another flight attendant, twisting the story completely. "That man is being demanding already. I'm not dealing with him. Security should have checked him twice." Her colleague looked uneasy but stayed quiet. It was easier to avoid conflict than to challenge a coworker. Minutes later, turbulence shook the plane slightly. The captain's voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We'll be making a quick announcement shortly." Jordan didn't pay attention. He just stared out the window, wishing the moment would pass. But then something unexpected happened. The cockpit door opened. The pilot stepped out. Passengers murmured it was unusual for a pilot to leave the cockpit mid-flight unless something significant was happening. Captain Marcus Hale, a tall black man with a perfectly pressed uniform and calm presence, walked down the aisle with purpose. Some passengers recognized him instantly. He was one of the youngest pilots in the airline's history, but he wasn't looking at them. He was looking for someone. His eyes landed on Jordan. The two men stared at each other, and then the captain's face softened with recognition. "Jordan?" he said. Jordan blinked. "Marcus Hale?" The passengers gasped. They clearly knew each other. Marcus walked closer, smiling warmly. "My brother, what are you doing on my flight?" A few whispers spread through the cabin. "They're brothers? He knows the captain? Oh, something's about to happen." Cynthia, watching from behind, suddenly stiffened. Her face drained of color. Marcus glanced around, noticing the uncomfortable atmosphere. "Everything all right here?" he asked. Jordan opened his mouth, but Cynthia interrupted quickly. "Sir, this passenger has been causing trouble. He's rude, demanding, and disturbing others." The passengers who witnessed everything exchanged looks of disbelief. Marcus raised a brow. "Trouble? Jordan Walker?" He turned to his brother. "You? Disturbing people? That doesn't sound like you at all." Cynthia tried to maintain her lie. "Captain, I assure you," but before she could finish, an elderly man in 14A stood up. "Sir, she refused to serve him. She was mocking him from the moment he boarded." Then the woman from across the aisle added, "She humiliated him, loudly, for no reason." More passengers nodded, confirming the truth. Cynthia froze. Marcus exhaled slowly, disappointment filling his eyes. He looked at his brother, embarrassed that someone under his command had treated him this way. "Jordan," he said gently, "come with me." Passengers watched in stunned silence as Marcus guided him toward the front of the plane, toward first class. Cynthia felt her knees weaken. She realized her poor black passenger was not only connected to the pilot, but was the pilot's own brother, and her biggest mistake was still yet to be revealed. The cabin felt different now, heavier, quieter, charged with curiosity. Every passenger leaned slightly into the aisle, waiting to see what would happen next. Cynthia stood stiff near the galley, her hands trembling as she pretended to sort napkins she'd already sorted twice. The truth hung in the air like a storm cloud. And it was only a matter of time before it broke. Up in first class, Marcus guided Jordan to an empty premium seat. "Sit here," the captain said gently. "You deserve comfort, not disrespect." Jordan hesitated. "Marcus, I don't want special treatment. I just wanted to get home." Marcus sighed, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Special treatment isn't the issue. It's about correcting a wrong." He knelt slightly so they were eye level. "You've spent your whole life rising above people like her. Today, it's time someone stands up for you." Jordan felt his throat tighten. Marcus had always been the protective active one, smart, disciplined, always pushing through barriers until he broke them. But even he knew what it felt like to be judged at first glance. The intercom beeped. Marcus stood, straightened his jacket, and stepped to the front of the aircraft. Passengers straightened as he lifted the microphone. This wasn't a normal announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice calm but firm, "I want to address an incident that occurred on this flight." Cynthia's pulse pounded so hard she could hear it. "A member of my crew," Marcus continued, "was reported for discriminatory behavior toward a passenger." A ripple of murmurs spread across the cabin. "That passenger," he said, pausing, "happens to be my younger brother." Gasps broke out instantly, shock, guilt, shame, and awe blending together. Jordan lowered his head, uncomfortable with the attention, but Marcus kept going. "While his identity should not matter because every passenger deserves respect, it's important for me to clarify two things." He held up a hand. "First, no one, regardless of skin color, deserves to be mocked or humiliated while traveling. Not on my flight, not ever." Passengers nodded, a few clapped softly. "And second, the man who was mistreated today is not only my brother, but also a co-founder of a major aviation software firm that this airline uses every single day." Cynthia's legs almost gave out. Jordan looked up sharply. He hadn't expected Marcus to reveal that. But Marcus continued, "So for anyone who judged him based on his hoodie, his backpack, or his skin color," he glanced directly at Cynthia, "you judged a man whose work keeps your plane safely in the air." Silence swallowed the cabin. Thick, shameful, heavy. Marcus gently placed the microphone back. Passengers erupted into supportive applause, not loud or mocking, but strong, united, and full of meaning. Jordan felt a strange wave wash over him. Not revenge, but dignity, recognition, validation. Cynthia, red-faced, slowly approached. "Mr. Walker, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." Jordan raised a hand. "That's the thing," he said calmly. "You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect." Her eyes filled with regret. "Genuine or not, it didn't matter now," Marcus returned. "HR will handle the rest," he said quietly. As the plane continued through the clouds, something shifted. Passengers treated Jordan like a respected guest. The woman across the aisle offered him snacks from her bag. The elderly man patted his shoulder. A little girl whispered, "You're cool." And for the first time that day, Jordan smiled. Not because of the announcement, not because the whole plane now knew who he was, but because the person who mattered most, his brother, had stood up for him. Sometimes the loudest justice comes from the quiet power of the truth.